Several scenes in Elm Street contain curious instances of cat-related imagery. There's a grinning cat leering over Tina's bed, and it's quite prominent when Nancy sleeps in that same bed, as a figure bulges out of the wall. Note that the figure in the wall is pushing through with its hands, and we can see that its right hand has the fingers spread much wider, revealing that it is Freddy's glove. But the knives aren't cutting through the wall, and the lighting is weird. It casts a shadow over the cat's head as it emerges, yet it sort of looks to me like it's lit from above and below. It's not a CGI or blue screen effect either. According to the DVD commentary, it was a practical effect involving stretchy materials in the set. But anyway, the cat was the main thing I wanted to draw to your attention in the shot. There are at least 2 cat images in Glenn's bedroom. Funny that we don't see any actual pet cats in either house, and what I think is a tiger at the top of the room. Now in this scene particularly, we can take the cat props as being a subliminal representation of Freddy's presence, Krueger the Cougar so to speak. After all, cats are expert hunters of the night who swipe at their prey with sharp claws, like Freddy. I'm making leaps here, right? Well, I thought so too until I looked at the wall images in the hospital scene. On the right we have a sort of dreamy image of a lake and mountains, appropriate in that Nancy is nodding off into dreamland. Again, reading too much, right? But this image of what looks to me like a werewolf running beneath the moon and stars really isn't something we'd expect to see in a hospital. It suggests the presence of a supernatural predator, and, like cats, werewolves have sharp claws and teeth. But look at the weird image above it. 2 giant cat figures dressed as humans and riding a tram, with the prominent one wearing a red shirt. These 2 animal images in the same shot communicate the same concept, a synthesis between a predatory animal and a human. Far from being a conclusionary leap, this is quite reliable stuff. You don't set up a shot like this only to accidentally include images of werewolves and cat people unless you want those images to be there. Yet another image that portrays people as animals or vice versa is this conveniently well-lit tapestry in Nancy's basement. Animals dressed like people and playing pool on a blood-red table against blood-red walls. The image stands out like a sore thumb. In Glenn's bedroom, there's another Wolfman image way up above the bed, and there's a vulture teddy right over Glenn's shoulder, a carnivorous bird. And hey, it's wearing a tie, just like people do, a striped tie in fact. Oh, but it's not red and green like Freddy's sweater. Well, the creepy mask hovering over Glenn's other shoulder is. Glenn is surrounded by predators here. On the subject of masks, Craven has stated, almost all cultures have it in their most important ceremonies. It kind of is a combination of removing humanity and yet leaving it there behind the eyes. But I didn't want an immobile mask. I think Jason was around in those days. I wanted something that could express. So I suddenly hit upon scar tissue, so the backstory came out of that. Another set of subliminal animal references occurs across 2 separate scenes. In Glenn's bedroom, an image of a Stegosaurus dinosaur is sort of aimed at Glenn's bed like an animal about to attack, and on the far wall a Brontosaurus is doing the same. Paleontologists believe both these dinosaurs to have been herbivores, but for the sake of subliminal effect, they are presented here like monsters about to go for the kill. Okay, so what makes me so sure that these 2 images aren't just incidental props that one would expect a teenage character to have? Well, there is one other scene which features a dinosaur image prop that is about the same size and graphical style as these 2. Wait for it, pause, bingo. A Triceratops dinosaur with its triple-horned head turned toward dead Tina like a set of slashing claws or knives. Compare it with the 2 in Glenn's bedroom. Now for these 3 images from the same graphical set to occur accidentally in unrelated scenes would be one hell of a coincidence. Nope, my money's on the table. It was intentional. Oh, and note that the Triceratops is placed against a blood-red backdrop too. The burnt flesh thing conveniently fits with this interpretation. Freddy's mottled brown skin is like animal hide, and it makes his eyes stand out like predatory eyes in the dark. He breathes, snarls, hisses and roars like an aggressive animal. Silhouetted in black with arms held out wide, he looks like a giant spider giving chase. Note that his shadow here even seems to be grabbing at Tina's feet. Now it's clear that Freddy using a knife-fingered glove is akin to scratching people with claws like a cat or wolf, but we don't get anything in the way of Freddy threatening to bite his victims. His rotten teeth are barely visible, which communicates the disease theme, but if he'd had prominent white teeth and eyes, he would have looked a lot more predatory in the traditional "I'm gonna eat you" sense. Metallic fanged dentures to match his fingerknives would have been brilliantly effective. Nevertheless, actor Robert Englund, who played Freddy and developed a lot of his posture and body language, does a lot of teeth baring, like a snarling animal. I think it would have been powerful to show Freddy bite one of his victims or to be seen eating a body part from a victim, but it seems that the tear you to pieces animal threat was mostly limited to the claw motif. In fact, here it is in Wes Craven's own words. On the other glove, hand, Glenn's death is very cannibalistic. We see Freddy pull Glenn through the bed, but the hole then appears to vomit Glenn back up, as if it's an orifice that has semi-digested him. And it's mentioned that the coroner vomits in response to seeing the mess. Consistent with the threat of infection from animal bites and scratches, Freddy is a diseased figure. But this also ties in with the stereotypical perception of rapist stalkers having the kind of poor hygiene that we expect from homeless old drunks. His burnt skin makes him look like a wrinkly old pervert in desperate need of a wash. But the general perception of sex predators as having poor hygiene, I think, is a collective conscious metaphor of both their diseased pathology and the threat of them transmitting STDs to their victims. In a similar way, prostitutes are often portrayed as smelly, dirty, street-walking trash, probably because a person who sleeps with one is taking a risk of contracting an STD. But I've worked with prostitutes and sex offenders, and from what I saw, real-life sexual predators are often surprisingly clean-cut and well-groomed, because they are well-practiced at portraying a false version of themselves to hide their sex offender tendencies. And with prostitutes, I generally found that those who did have poor hygiene, it was usually because they were alcoholics or drug addicts. And even then, not all addicts neglect their hygiene either. So the dirty, smelly hygiene stereotype seems to be a multifaceted manifestation of our fear of STDs, a metaphor of mental illness and depravity, and perhaps even a means of separating out such individuals as social undesirables who need to be isolated to avoid infecting others physically or mentally. To insult someone's hygiene, even if they do really need a wash, is generally considered a very harsh insult here in Western culture. So probably more than any other classic movie monster I can think of, Freddy has this air of disease about him. He has rotten, gangrenous blood and worms or maggots beneath his flesh. His trousers and hat are a dirty brown. His rotten skin slides off under Tina's hands. And the glisten of his flesh suggests him to be incredibly sweaty. This is emphasised when he comes out of the bed, damp sweat or blood seeping through the sheets. A slight continuity error of bloody patches between shots, but you get the point. The emergence of smoke out of the torn blankets also gives an impression of hot, smelly fumes emanating from Freddy. Actually, I think a bit more of the damp patches would have helped in this sequence. Maybe have Freddy imprint his left hand against the sheet with blood before ripping it open. Having the characters generally express some sense of unbearable disgust regarding the smell of Freddy's unseen presence or the smell of his lair might also have added nicely to the mix.